What happens when the boss trades his office for a lifeguard chair and nobody knows it's him? Franklin Ames squinted at the job board pinned to the break room wall of his corporate office. 14 aquatic centers, all under his late father's company banner, and yet complaints still poured in. Not major ones, just enough to feel like something was off. A few negative reviews about rude staff, one about bad scheduling, and a handwritten letter from a mom whose teen daughter had cried in the locker room after being yelled at by a supervisor. Franklin had inherited the company 3 years ago. He knew pools were the beating heart of the business in the summer, and it didn't sit right with him that he hadn't actually stepped foot in one of his own locations since college. So he told his assistant to clear his calendar for 2 weeks. No media, no board updates. Just him, a fake name Kyle, a forged lifeguard certification, and a believable backstory, college dropout, trying to get back on track. He picked the 11th location on the list, a busy aquatic center in a working-class suburb. He'd never met the staff. Their photos weren't even in the employee database, just first names and shift schedules. The disguise worked better than he expected. Blonde wig with dark roots, a pair of silver-rimmed glasses, and a little stubble. He left his designer shoes at home and wore knockoff sneakers. When he walked into the manager's office for the interview, nobody blinked. "You're Kyle?" asked the pool supervisor, a lanky man in his 30s with sunburned arms and a clipboard clutched to his chest. "Yeah," Franklin said with a nervous smile. "Just moved back in with my cousin." "Need a summer gig?" Supervisor's name was Tyler. He nodded, didn't ask many questions. "We're short-staffed, so if you're breathing and certified, you're hired." That short sentence explained a lot. The first day, Franklin shadowed a girl named Ellie. She was maybe 18, sharp eyes, took her job seriously. Taught him the ropes, how to rotate every 20 minutes, how to scan the pool, how to handle rowdy kids without being harsh. But by hour 5, Ellie hadn't had a break. "Hey, when do we eat?" Franklin asked as casually as he could. Ellie glanced at her watch. "Lunch was supposed to be at 1. It's 3:30. I'll probably get mine after close." He frowned. "What?" She shrugged. "It's always like this." Franklin watched as she left her post, only to be intercepted by Tyler before she made it to the staff room. "Ellie, I need you back on the north side. The twins are acting up again." She hesitated. "I haven't eaten later," Tyler snapped. "We don't have time for this." Franklin's jaw tensed. That was the 3rd time he'd seen Tyler redirect someone's break. The youngest lifeguards, barely 16, looked like they were running on fumes. That night, Franklin sat in his car, legs sore, sunburned, and angry. He'd thought going undercover would help him understand the business again. Instead, he was learning exactly how far things had drifted from what his father built. The next morning, he showed up early. Ellie was already there, stretching by the edge of the pool. "You always come in this early?" he asked. She nodded. "I live nearby. My mom works night shifts. I like the quiet before it gets crazy." Franklin nodded. "You're good at this. Better than me." She gave him a tired smile. "Thanks. I try." Tyler arrived 15 minutes late, barking orders before he even set his bag down. No breaks before 4 were short again. And someone better scrub that mildew off the diving board by lunch. Franklin glanced at the schedule. "Aren't we supposed to have 6 guards on duty?" Tyler didn't look up. "Yeah, but 2 called out. Again. This generation's allergic to work." Franklin bit back a reply. By noon, a 16-year-old named Jaden was visibly shaking. When Franklin asked if he was okay, Jaden muttered, "Didn't eat since yesterday. Ty said if I leave my post again, I'm done." Franklin's stomach turned. He waited until closing, then offered to help Tyler close up. The man was in a rush, clearly eager to leave. "You ever think about hiring more people?" Franklin asked lightly. Tyler scoffed. "No one wants to work. I offer hours, they flake. So I push the good ones harder. That's how it works." Franklin said nothing. But inside, something snapped. Back at his motel, he opened his laptop and pulled up the full scheduling logs for the last month. The same names. Over and over. Ellie. Jaden. 2 others who hadn't been seen all week. He shut the laptop and stared at the ceiling. He was the boss. And he just watched his employees suffer through an unsafe, unhealthy work culture. Tomorrow he'd stay late. He'd see what Tyler said when he thought no one important was listening. And then, Franklin Ames would stop being Kyle. The wind had picked up by the time Franklin stepped onto the pool deck the next morning. A gray haze hung above the trees, and the air smelled faintly of chlorine and sunscreen. He couldn't shake the image of Jaden's trembling hands or Ellie's dry lips. Something was deeply wrong here, and today he wasn't just observing, he was watching for the tipping point. Tyler arrived 10 minutes late again. He didn't greet anyone, just tossed his bag under the office desk and called out the rotation. Ellie, North End. Jaden, Slide. Kyle, Shallow. Don't forget to grab the test strips. And somebody better clean the trash around the snack bar. Yesterday's mess was embarrassing. Franklin grabbed the test strips without a word. He noticed Jaden walking stiffly, shoulders hunched. No breakfast again, judging by how he kept swallowing like his throat was dry. Ellie, already on her tower, gave him a quick nod, but her eyes looked dull, unfocused. By mid-morning, a mother had to intervene when her daughter slipped walking barefoot on spilled nacho cheese near the concessions. The custodian hadn't shown up and no backup had been called. Tyler barely looked up when Franklin mentioned the incident. She's fine, right? Then move on. We're not babysitters. Franklin crouched behind the chair rack and sent a message to his assistant to flag the center's maintenance contractor. No one had shown up for 3 days and it wasn't being logged. He didn't mention his real identity, just asked for a quiet review of the facility contracts. At noon, one of the newer hires, a 17-year-old named Kiara, was quietly crying in the locker hallway. Franklin saw her slip away from her post and followed at a distance, staying out of sight until he heard her voice. I told him I needed to switch Saturdays because of my aunt's surgery, she said, speaking into her phone. He told me if I didn't show up this weekend, don't bother showing up at all. Franklin felt his chest tighten. He stepped back before she saw him. Her whisper carried more weight than any report he'd ever read. She wasn't weak. She was terrified of losing a job that was paying for her college application fees. Franklin made a mental note. That was twice now Tyler using schedule threats to control his staff. He returned to the poolside and took over Kiara's post without a word. She was back 10 minutes later, eyes dry but red. He didn't ask. She didn't explain. Tyler didn't notice the switch. The afternoon brought an unexpected twist. A regional safety inspector dropped by, clipboard in hand, sunglasses tucked into the collar of his polo. Franklin recognized him immediately. Marcus, someone he'd hired back when he was still in operations. Not close enough to recognize him through the disguise, but thorough enough to notice if something was off. Where's your supervisor? Marcus asked, scanning the pool deck. Tyler came jogging down from the office, fake cheer lighting up his face. Marcus, didn't know you were stopping by? Everything's good here? Top shape? Marcus raised an eyebrow. No posted break schedule. Lifeguards on double shifts. You sure you're following protocol? Franklin stepped away from the conversation and repositioned a lane divider. He kept his head down but listened carefully. Tyler laughed. Kids forget to post things. I'll handle it. You know how it is, summer chaos. Marcus didn't buy it. I'll need to see the past week's logs. And your written incident reports. Tyler's voice dropped. We've been short-staffed. Haven't had time to file every minor thing. But we're managing. No major incidents. Franklin turned slowly, just in time to see Marcus scribble something and shake his head. I'll be back next week. If things aren't documented, it's a compliance violation. And I'll be filing a report with HQ. Tyler's smile vanished the second Marcus walked away. He turned and kicked a bucket near the supply closet, then stormed back into the office without a word. The staff didn't react. No one even flinched. They were used to it. At closing, the locker rooms were humid and quiet. Franklin grabbed a broom and started sweeping near the showers, more to stay near the others than for the task itself. Ellie was wiping down the benches with a rag that was clearly too small for the job. Long day, Franklin said, keeping his voice low. She didn't look up. They're all long now. He hesitated. Why don't you say something? About the breaks, the threats. She turned to face him, eyes sharp now. To who? Tyler's been here for 5 years. He knows the regional guys. Every time someone complains, they disappear. Liz tried last summer. She got scheduled for 6 closings in a row and quit. Franklin blinked. What about HR? Ellie gave a short laugh. We don't even have an HR rep assigned here. You think anyone reads those forms in the office binder? They go straight in the drawer. Franklin's stomach dropped. He looked at her, really looked, and realized she didn't expect anything to change. She was just trying to survive the summer. The next morning, Franklin arrived before sunrise. He wore his real clothes. No wig, no glasses. Just a clean shirt and the face everyone in the corporate office would recognize instantly. He waited by the employee entrance, arms crossed. When Tyler pulled into the lot, he didn't notice him at first. Just yawned, unlocked the door, and started up the hall. Franklin followed him inside. Morning, Tyler. Tyler turned, confused, then cautious. Sorry? Do I know you? You do now, Franklin said quietly. Franklin Ames, owner. Tyler froze. His mouth opened slightly, then closed. Wait, you're Kyle. Franklin didn't answer. He stepped past him and walked into the office. It was cluttered with unfiled papers, leftover food containers, and a whiteboard with half-erased names. He pulled out the drawer Ellie had mentioned. Found 5 sealed HR forms. None had dates. One was from Kiara. Another from a name he didn't recognize. Sit, Franklin said. Now. Tyler sat. Franklin didn't raise his voice. You've threatened minors with termination for asking for schedule adjustments. You've denied legally required breaks. You've falsified incident reports to avoid inspections and created a system where fear keeps people working. Tyler opened his mouth. Don't explain, Franklin cut him off. You're done. Effective immediately. You will not speak to the staff. You will not return to this location. Security will collect your keys this afternoon. Tyler stood up fast. You can't I just did. He walked out and called his assistant. Send a temporary supervisor from the central office. Today. I want a full staff meeting at 5. Then he walked to the pool deck and climbed up to the tower beside Ellie. She looked over, confused. Where's Tyler? Gone, Franklin said. She stared at him. Wait. You're the owner. He nodded. I came looking for answers. I found enough. You all deserve better. And that starts now. She didn't reply immediately. Just turned back to the water, eyes scanning the lanes. Then she whispered good. Franklin stayed on that tower the rest of the day. Not as Kyle. Not as the boss. Just a man finally seeing what had been hidden in plain sight. At 5 o'clock sharp, Franklin stood in the middle of the staff lounge, still in his polo and swim trunks from the day's rotation. The room was cramped, the air thick with chlorine and leftover heat from the afternoon sun. Folding chairs were dragged in from the pool deck. A few of the younger guards leaned against the wall, unsure whether to sit or stand. No one spoke. Ellie sat near the door, arms crossed over her knees. Jaden was last to arrive, his hair still damp, towel slung over his shoulder. Kiara sat beside him, eyes flicking from Franklin to the others. I know you've had a long day, Franklin began. I'm not here to waste time. No one looked surprised anymore. Word had already spread. I spent the last week working beside you. Not as your boss. Just another set of eyes. What I saw wasn't just bad management, it was dangerous. He let the silence hang. You've been holding this place together with grit and duct tape. And it's not your job to do that alone. Jaden exhaled slowly. Ellie's jaw tightened. Franklin turned and gestured toward a woman standing quietly near the office entrance. She was in her early 40s, crisp navy blouse, clipboard in hand. This is Melinda. She's from Central Operations. She's stepping in as interim site lead while we restructure. She reports directly to me. A few heads turned. She'll be here every day for the next month. I want full compliance with all break policies. I want every shift documented. And if something's wrong, you go to her. She doesn't answer to anyone between you and me. Melinda gave a brief nod. I've read every shift log and every incident report or lack of them from the past 2 seasons. I'll be starting from scratch. Schedules, safety drills, equipment checks. We'll do this the right way. Franklin looked around the room. I know you've all gotten used to certain behavior, maybe even believed it was normal. But from now on, we run this place with respect, mutual, non-negotiable respect. He paused. If anyone speaks to you with anything less than that, I want to know. Immediately. Ellie leaned forward slightly. Is that just for supervisors? Or customers too? Franklin turned to her. Anyone. We back our staff. If someone's out of line, we don't let it slide. A low murmur passed through the room. Kiara raised her hand a little. What about scheduling? I mean, when someone has stuff they can't move. Melinda answered before Franklin could. We'll be redoing the entire rotation system. There'll be an online form to request changes. No more last-minute punishments. We'll keep emergency coverage protocols, but nobody gets penalized for taking care of their family. Franklin nodded. If someone threatens your hours for asking for time off, that's not a manager, that's a liability. That got a few quiet nods. I'm also implementing an anonymous reporting line. Direct to corporate. You won't need to wonder if your complaint disappears into a drawer. For a moment, no one moved. Then Jaden raised his head. Does this mean we'll get more staff? Or are we still covering doubles? Franklin folded his arms. We've already posted new positions. Priority is going to backup hires and part-time floaters. Until then, Melinda will be on deck herself. I'll come back too if I have to. I'm not afraid of the tower. That drew a few half smiles, but they faded fast. The exhaustion was still there in their posture, in the way they avoided eye contact when the topic shifted to trust. Franklin didn't blame them. When the meeting ended, most of the staff filtered out quietly. Ellie lingered by the door. Franklin caught her eye. You okay? He asked. She hesitated. Not sure yet. That's fair. She glanced at Melinda, who was already unpacking a battered binder at the office desk. You going back to headquarters? He shook his head. Staying a while. Ellie gave a small nod and walked out without another word. Melinda closed the office door behind them. You weren't kidding, she said, keeping her voice low. That place has been held together by overworked kids and bad habits. It's going to take more than policies to fix it. Franklin sat down in the chair Tyler used to occupy. I know. That's why I'm not leaving. The next morning started slow, overcast sky, light drizzle tapping the pool covers. Franklin arrived before the gates opened. Melinda was already inside, typing a new shift plan into the office computer. The whiteboard had been wiped clean. By the time the first swimmers arrived, 2 replacement guards had shown up, one transferred from another site, the other a recent hire who'd passed his certification 2 days prior. It wasn't enough to cover every gap, but it helped. Franklin took the West Tower. He didn't need to, but he wanted to be visible. A few parents recognized him from a past press interview, but no one said anything. He kept his eyes on the water. Midday, a woman in her 50s approached the front desk, loud and impatient. Where's the redhead girl? The one from last week? Melinda looked up from her clipboard. Is there a problem? She told my grandson he couldn't run. He's 5. You don't talk to kids like that. I want her written up. Melinda stayed calm. If a lifeguard gave a safety instruction, that's not a disciplinary issue. The woman leaned over the counter. Don't give me that. She was rude. No smile, no manners. I want someone else on duty when we're here. Franklin walked in from the deck. Ma'am, I'm the site owner. She blinked. Oh, good. Maybe you can do something. He crossed his arms. We don't reassign staff because they enforce safety rules. If you're unhappy with the policy, you're welcome to speak with me in writing. But our guards are trained to act in the best interest of everyone here. Her mouth opened, then closed. She huffed and turned away without another word. After she left, Melinda turned to him. You sure you want to be that hands-on? He looked back toward the pool, where Ellie was now calmly watching the diving block. Yeah, I'm sure. That night, Franklin walked the locker hallway again. Clean, dry. A new mop station had been installed. The light fixtures worked. The smell of mildew was gone. He checked the punch-out log. Everyone had gotten their breaks. No one had stayed past closing. Outside, Jaden was sitting on the edge of the shallow end, trailing his fingers through the water. Franklin joined him. You sticking around? Jaden asked without looking up. For now. Jaden nodded. It feels different. Franklin raised an eyebrow. Better. Not worse. Fair enough. Behind them, Ellie was laughing with Kiera near the supply rack. Someone had brought watermelon slices. The atmosphere was still cautious, but the tension had cracked just enough for daylight to get in. Franklin didn't say anything else. Just sat there, watching the ripple of the water, and thought about how close he'd come to missing all of this. He'd built a company. But somewhere along the way, he'd let it drift into the hands of people who treated it like a burden instead of a responsibility. That was over now, and this time he wasn't looking away. Franklin arrived before sunrise again, this time carrying a clipboard with updated hiring forms and a half-empty thermos of black coffee. The air was cooler than usual, and the pool lights cast a soft ripple on the water's surface. He knew the novelty of his presence was wearing off, which was exactly what he wanted. If the staff could get used to the idea that the owner might show up in swim trunks and rotate into their shift, then maybe the culture was shifting in the right direction. Melinda was already inside reviewing the new applicant files. She didn't look up when he entered but passed him a sheet with 2 names circled. Both certified, both local. They can start next week if their references check out, she said. Franklin nodded. We'll start them on light shifts. Floaters only. No full rotations until we're sure they're ready. She tapped her pen once on the desk. Ellie asked if she could start training new hires. I told her it was your call. He paused. She's consistent. Calm under pressure. Give her the go-ahead. But keep her on the regular schedule. No piling on. Already accounted for. The front gate clanked open a few minutes later. Jaden and Kiara walked in together, both carrying fresh towels and quietly chatting about school starting up again in a few weeks. Franklin watched from the window. There was no stiffness in their steps today, no glancing over their shoulders. Still tired, but something had shifted. They paced themselves. By mid-morning, Franklin was on the deck, checking the chemical logs. The pool temperature was within range. Chlorine levels steady. Melinda had started mandatory water tests 3 times a day, and the staff had begun to treat it like a point of pride when the numbers came out perfect. He moved toward the snack bar, where a new worker, a quiet college student named Luis, was nervously stacking bottled water. Franklin leaned against the counter. You settling in? Luis nodded. Yeah. Ellie showed me the register yesterday. Everyone's been cool. Franklin tapped the counter twice. If someone gives you a hard time, I want to hear about it. Doesn't matter who. Luis gave a slight nod and went back to lining up the drinks. The day moved steadily. A few minor first aid calls. 1 scraped knee, a twisted ankle by the diving board. Nothing out of the ordinary. What stood out, though, was how the staff handled it. Calm. Coordinated. Ellie directed from her tower without raising her voice. Jaden retrieved the first aid kit before being asked. Kiera kept the area clear without panicking the guests. It wasn't perfect, but it was working. Around 2 o'clock, Franklin stepped into the office to check the break logs. Everyone had clocked out for at least 15 minutes by now. Melinda had made sure the schedule allowed for rotating coverage, even with the short staff. The trick was keeping rotations tight and breaks staggered. No one sat out too long, but no one was being pushed to the edge either. The phone rang. Melinda answered. Aquatic Center, this is Melinda. Her face shifted slightly as she listened. Understood, she said before hanging up. That was corporate HR. Someone from another site forwarded a complaint about Tyler. Franklin didn't change expression. He's already gone. What's the complaint? He tried contacting Kiera through her personal number. Said he wanted to clear the air. She told her cousin, who works at a different location. He flagged it. Franklin didn't hesitate. Get legal involved. That's harassment. I want a no-contact order filed through employee relations. Immediately. Melinda nodded. Already started. Franklin stepped out of the office and walked toward the east end of the pool where Kiera was managing the lane lines. He waited until she looked up. Got a minute? They walked over to the side gate. He kept his voice low. You did the right thing. And the company's backing you fully. She looked uneasy. I didn't want to cause drama. I just didn't feel okay keeping it to myself. You shouldn't have to carry it, he said. That's what leadership is for. We'll make sure he doesn't come near you or anyone else here again. Permanently. She gave a small nod. Thanks. Franklin returned to the office and updated the site record with a formal note. Former supervisor contacted current minor employee post-termination. Escalated to legal. Zero tolerance enforced. He read it twice before saving. The next day brought a small but symbolic milestone. A community board member stopped by unannounced to drop off a donation, a few brand new life vests, and a laminated thank you poster from a local kids' swim class. The woman shook Franklin's hand without realizing who he was. My grandson said the guards were actually nice this time, she said. That's not always been the case. Franklin smiled briefly. We're working on it. As she left, he noticed Ellie watching from the tower. He climbed up and took the post beside her. You're getting a reputation, he said. She kept her eyes on the pool. Good or bad? Good. But too early to relax. Wasn't planning on it. The afternoon brought the usual rush: families, teenagers, lap swimmers, but the rhythm had changed. Instead of scrambling, the staff adjusted. No one panicked. When the filter system sputtered for 20 seconds, Melinda had already called the contractor before Franklin got to the switchboard. They were communicating, not just surviving. At closing, Franklin went locker to locker with the maintenance checklist. He paused by the janitor's closet, now cleared of the clutter that had once made it unusable. A new mop bucket, fresh gloves, a sign-out sheet. He found Jaden wiping down the benches in the staff lounge. The kid looked up, surprised. You're still here? Franklin shrugged. Place doesn't close itself. Jaden hesitated. You really gonna keep this up? Being around, I mean, as long as it takes to make sure this sticks. Jaden nodded and went back to folding towels into the supply bin. The final piece came a few days later. Melinda entered the office with a brown folder. Final audit from the inspector. We passed. No flags. Franklin exhaled once. Good. I want the report posted in the staff room. Let them see it. He walked to the center of the deck and called the team over. The pool had just closed. Kids were gone. Water still shimmered under the lights. This week was a test. Not just for you, for me too. I came here thinking the problem was laziness or bad attitudes. What I found was something else. No one interrupted. You were working harder than you should have been, with less than you needed. And you didn't quit. Not one of you. He held up the audit report. We passed inspection. Clean. No violations. That's you. That's your work. He paused. I'm not promising every day will be easy, but I am promising you'll be treated like people. Not numbers. Not tools. People. They didn't clap. They didn't cheer. But they stood a little straighter. As the team dispersed, Ellie stayed behind. You said you came here looking for answers, she said. I found more than I expected. She looked toward the empty pool. You think the other sites are like this too? Franklin nodded slowly. Some. And I'll be visiting them next. She didn't ask if he meant undercover. He didn't offer. As the sun dipped behind the trees, Franklin walked the perimeter of the pool one last time. The water was still. The air carried the faint scent of sunscreen and wet concrete. The whistles had been packed away. The towers were empty. He turned off the deck lights himself before locking up. It had started with a report, a few lines on a spreadsheet. But standing in the dark, Franklin knew this was never about numbers. It was about people. And now they were finally being seen.